This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Call December 8th, 2002 regular meeting of the North Haven Board of Education to order at 6:30 p.m. Before we get started, just on a personal note, I would like to apologize for the late cancellation of the October meeting and my no-show for the November meeting. I had a pretty acute medical issue. I appreciate all the letters that I received from everybody. Randy, thank you for taking over on short notice last month. You did a great job. I appreciate it. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the November 10, 2022 Board of Education minute meetings?
So
Second.
Meeting minutes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. The next station here.
Hey, Goldie.
Yes, I approve.
Okay, I think you were on a delay. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay, that's all set. Board of Education student representative reports. We have a new representative for the junior class, Kaya Anning, is that correct? Kaya, I apologize, Kaya. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before you go on through a report today?
My name is Kaya. I'm the new junior representative for North Haven High. It really took me on surprise that I applied for this because it's not really my type of thing, but I had the support from my principal and my assistant principal, Mr. Lawrence, and I'm just really excited to see how this goes.
That's great.
Welcome.
Welcome. It's good for you to reach out, and sometimes when you test your comfort levels, that's a good thing. So do you have anything to report for the junior class today?
Alex is going to be doing the reporting, and I'll just be watching for the first meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Alex, how are you? Ready to go?
yeah, so on the curriculum and instruction side, the high school has fully implemented the board-approved 2023 graduation requirements, which are in effect for all current students. These include 25 total credits with humanities, STEM, and art requirements, and the full integration of the district's vision of the graduate in all classes via competencies, which are academic/intellectual skill sets, and dispositions, which are qualities of mind and character. The high school's new career-related internship program is up and running. In this program, students choose from an existing internship site, such as a local business, or even develop a new site. Faculty advisors help students to plan throughout the process and to succeed in the experience. Students earn credit for the experience. On the school and PTSA event side, a number of positive events going on, including toy drives by my group, More Than Likes, and Mr. Fiendella and the National Honor Society for the Yale Children's Hospital. The school counseling department held junior parent night on November 30th. The presentation was delivered by Albertus Magnus College. It provided an overview on post-secondary planning and FAFSA. In November, the high school enjoyed successful parent conference nights with strong turnout. Thank you to all of our parents and teachers for these informative and relationship-building events. Parents/guardians are reminded that the school administration, faculty, and staff are available throughout the school year in addition to these great events. There's a lot today.
That's okay.
Student, staff, and school accomplishments. High school teacher Kate Fountain's pop-up art shop class is creating holiday gift items using the circuit machines purchased with the North Haven Education Foundation grant. Students will sell these items in the North Haven High School Cafe on December 15th and 16th to fund Reason for the Season. It's a North Haven High School community providing holiday gifts and essentials for local families in need. The North Haven High School Career and Tech Education Department is proud to debut the North Haven Collective Apparel and Spiritwear online store. This enterprising experience is directly linked to the Advanced Fashion and Fashion Merchandising course at North Haven High School. Students have worked the last 2 months to build, design, and procure items for the community to show their North Haven Nighthawk spirit. Choir students Nicole Ortiz and Chloe Diaz were selected to participate in the 2022 All National Honors Festival November 3rd to 6th in Maryland. This is a comprehensive and educational experience composed of the top-performing high school musicians in the United States. Music department students Nicole Ortiz, Risa Tobin, and Amelia Shaw were selected to participate in the 2023 All Eastern Honors Festival in Rochester, New York in April. Students are selected from 13 Northeast states and the District of Columbia. Students from Connecticut are eligible only if they were top performing members of the 2022 Connecticut All-State Festival. Athletics, as you may have heard, football at the time, or football right now is going to be playing in the championships Saturday at, I believe, Rensselaer Field, which is UConn's sports field. Our winter sports season has begun, including our brand new program, wrestling. Another thank you guys to the Board of Education for providing this opportunity to the students. A bunch of my friends have already signed up and are currently playing on the wrestling team.
Excellent.
One last thing, Counselors will meet with all junior students during the month of December to continue post-secondary planning processes. And for the first time in 3 years, we were able to hold our senior-to-senior breakfast. The turnout was amazing. We had estimated 225 to 250 people in all. Baked goods from the culinary department and hot breakfast from the kitchen were awesome. High school vocalists and musicians were great. The preschool choir even came in and sang some songs. Our senior students did a fantastic job hosting and putting our guests first. Senior guests seemed to have a wonderful time. And that is it for our report.
That's fantastic. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
I know if either one of you have other obligations, whether it's sports or perhaps anything, you guys can leave anytime you like. You don't need to stay for the whole meeting. We're here to make sure that you share information on your classes.
Thank you.
And you did a great job. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go to public comment. Just a reminder, there are two portions of public comment. I tried to bring this out a couple of months ago, and then obviously I missed a couple of months. The reason I did it is to give everybody an opportunity to speak. The first portion of the public comment is for non-agenda items. So anything that we're not discussing tonight, we are more than willing to go up there, or more than likely to have you up there and bring it up, and we'll talk about it. The second portion of public comment will only be for agenda items. Only for agenda items. So if we're on a topic now off agenda, which is fine, we can talk about it. When it's over and we move on, and we get to the second, we will not be readdressing issues from the prior public comment. So if there's anybody who would like to speak for public comment, please come on up, state your name, I want you to throw your signature on that paper and let us know what's going on.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Marzick and I live at 73 Lexington Gardens. First, I want to take a minute to thank you all for being here tonight, particularly the board members, for your time and your service. I recognize that this is a thankless job and I really appreciate your energy and your dedication. Second, I would like to remind everyone here tonight, along with those watching at home, of the mission of the North Haven Public Schools. The mission of the North Haven school system specifically aims to develop responsible, educated, and productive global citizens who can thrive in an ever-changing world. Over the course of the past 2 meetings, there has been a clear interest from the public in regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Whether it be the surveys that have been discussed, books in our curriculum, or holidays that we honor. This is definitely on the minds of parents here in North Haven. I also want to point out that we have a highly qualified and respected DE&I coordinator here in our school system. I would love to hear from him on these issues, and it would be wonderful if we could have regular updates on the initiatives and policies that are being implemented, along with goals and action items that the leadership is working on. I think it would just be great to demystify this work and celebrate the amazing things that are being done. Lastly, I would really like to commend the district on its continued implementation of social and emotional learning. There's a lot of misinformation right now being spread, and I want to highlight the value of this important component of our curriculum and address those misconceptions. Social emotional learning is well researched throughout large bodies of evidence, and data repeatedly shows increase in improved academic performance, decrease in anxiety and behavioral issues, along with a decrease in bullying and an overall improvement in school connection. Social emotional learning is not a political agenda, and it does not push a political ideology. It builds on a framework of empathy and encourages children to try to understand another person's lived experience. The pillars of social emotional learning are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Teaching our kids about these pillars sets them up for success in the classroom, but not only that, these are vital life skills. These are the types of traits and characteristics that foster communication and connection and ultimately build community. If we truly want our children to thrive in an ever-changing world, they will need to be equipped with a level of self-awareness and coping strategies that prepare them for adversity. If we truly want to produce global citizens, we need to honor diversity and celebrate it in the classroom. I trust that our teachers can use these tenets of social emotional learning to empower our students to build that inclusive community and classroom we talk about. In closing, I just want to reiterate that I would love regular updates from our DE&I coordinator about these initiatives and the happenings in the district, and I'm a strong, strong supporter of social emotional learning and the benefits it provides our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Just a comment on that, starting in February, we're going to be presenting PowerPoints on a monthly basis about the curriculum and other things that are going on in the school that the parents are that you brought up right here today. So that's in the works right now.
Hi. As Jamie said, thank you so much for your service.
Can you just say your name, please?
Oh, yes. Scott Friedman, 17 Cooper Road. I want to reiterate much of what Jamie said about social emotional learning. I think it's critical. I'm watching my daughter gain those skills, and it's part of how she succeeds in the world and how I'd like her to behave in the world. I also just want to sort of go back a little bit, because in the September Board of Ed meeting, we heard a number of people give public comment that questioned our librarians, our Board of Ed, our teachers, our administrators and curriculum development people. And at the end of the day, I've watched these board meetings over the course of the 8 years that I've been here, and certainly very closely over the last 3. I commend the way that you've handled topics, both in front of the public and in the policies that you put together. And I trust that with the oversight of the community and our feedback, that you are doing the things that you're trained to do, that the teachers are and the administrators are executing the things that they have learned, being trained to do curriculum development, select books, and really engage with and understand students' experience. I think that pronouns, especially these days, are an important part of teachers getting to know their students. And I think that in that social emotional learning curriculum, I think one of the most important things is understanding where people are coming from, who they are, who you yourself are, and who others are. And so I commend the district and I commend the teachers on engaging our students, and the librarians for selecting books that challenge our students. As I said last time, I feel it's very important for my daughter's lived experience to be challenged at times, and for her to understand that it's different to come from North Haven than it is to come from Ciudad Juarez, or for that matter, Birmingham, Alabama. And so I thank you all for your service, and I really respectfully want to say that it's really important that we as a community both provide our feedback and also understand that we have trained professionals doing good work in this community, and I appreciate and applaud that work. I do want to give one additional thing that sort of touches on something that came up at the Board of Finance rather than the Board of Ed, and that is there was some discussion about carryover funds that I think is specifically at times linked to things like special education. And I feel very strongly that the Board of Ed should control that decision making. I think that special education is an incredibly hard thing to budget for, And I personally appreciate that we don't want to be looking at that at the end of the year as an incremental thing. You know, X additional dollars at the end of the year from a special education perspective are perhaps a little different than some of the other line items that you budget for. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi folks, Tim Gabriel, use he, him pronoun, 18 Renee Lane. And thank you, Ron, for saying that we're going to be kind of going over some of this stuff in future meetings. I'm up here to ask for that as well, so I'm glad to see that that's actually being done. And
That's not just my idea, it's the board.
well, thank everybody.
We all been talking about it.
I just want to go into like a little bit more about like why I want this, and I know that this is a topic that kind of inspires a lot of kind of fantastical fears about worst case scenarios and slippery slopes and stuff like that. And I, kind of can't help wondering if part of this is because the nature of this work has seemed esoteric. We don't really know much about it when it's been hidden from view, and therefore it's been being colored by these perceptions that are out there kind of in the popular imaginary. Some of these are being funded by well-funded fringe groups with the stated purposes of taking these things down. And that's not their only goals. A lot of these groups are also about dismantling teacher autonomy, classroom independence, and public education as we know it. That's why I want to propose that we as a school district be loud and affirmative about the work that we're already doing in the schools. I was so glad last meeting to hear Mr. Stirk and several of the community members and the board state their support for the teachers at the last meeting. At a time when our educators are extremely burnt out and leaving the profession because of the at times impossible expectations that are being placed on them, and in no small part because a procession of baseless accusations have been hurled at them over the past couple years. I want to make it loud and clear that not everyone feels this way, and some of us in town have your back. As the son of a retired public school teacher, it breaks my heart to see how such low morale and stress among our school teachers. And we're coming around the corner now from the 10-year anniversary of the Sandy Hook shooting. And I will never forget my mother saying how she understood why those teachers put their lives on the line to shield their students from harm, because she was certain that her and every single one of her colleagues would do exactly the same thing. Our educators love their work, but most of all, they love our students. And sometimes like they're their own children, even if they only get to be with them for a year. And they would take a bullet for our kids, and you have to appreciate that. Even if we disagree from time to time, when they adopt things like SEL and DEI in the classroom, they are acting in what they believe is the best interest of our students. And no matter if public gratitude or respect will ever be adequate to convey how important that role is. And it's why thousands of residents feel secure leaving their kids with these teachers for 7 hours a day. But kind words only get you so far unless we communicate the work that our educators and our administrators are doing. And that's not to say that I don't appreciate some of the newsletters and stuff that go home. I read every single one of them. But even as somebody with a wife on the Board of Ed, somebody who has a child with special needs, a child who's LGBTQ, and also just a great interest in the subject, I'm not quite sure what's going on with DEI in the schools either. It's sort of mysterious to me. If we rewind back to the mascot discussion, we heard lots of parents and residents who had taken their kids out of schools, who had been subject to behavior that I think we would all agree is unacceptable, and various other accounts of things happening as well, but not exclusively pertaining to the mascot either. And I know anecdotally steps have been taken to correct some of this, including changing the mascot, go Nighthawks, and hiring Mr. Lawrence, who's been gracious enough to take this tough role under his wing. But again, I'm glad that we're going to see regular updates about that, about the progress we're making and the work that still needs to be done. So let's use the transformative tool of education to tackle the confusion and misinformation around this subject. Let's set our goals as a community, and let's be proud of the work that we're already doing to tackle injustice, to make our schools a friendlier, more accepting place for all our students. And you might get some heckle still from folks on this about whether this work is important or valuable, and that might be the kinder things that are said. But I know myself and several other people here, and myriad more that are watching at home, who stay in this community, who buy property here, and are invested in the outcomes of our students, do so based on the strength of our schools. And if you are fulfilling your mission statement, as Jamie said before, to develop responsible, educated, and productive global citizens who thrive in an ever-changing world. We will be with you to make sure that becomes a reality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, how are you?
My name is Sally Duemi, 5 Blossom Drive. Mr. Chairman, I'm here tonight to comment on some statements made by Board of Education Finance Director Howard Wardlow, and more specifically, statements made by Board of Education member Amanda Gabriel at the November 10th, 2022 Board of Ed meeting. These statements were made during a discussion of the proposed memorandum of understanding between the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance. Again, this was from the November 10th meeting, and these statements were made at the timestamp 1 hour and 13 minutes to 1 hour and 17 minutes, if anyone wants to verify the quotes that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. The Memorandum of Understanding provides a process to follow when the Board of Education has unexpended funds or surplus funds at the end of a fiscal year. Mrs. Gabriel's comments, which referenced Board of Finance member Nancy Barrett by implication, were false. And as a result, Nancy Barrett is currently being targeted unfairly on social media as anti-education. Anyone who's been on this board for many years, or anyone who's been following North Haven town affairs, will know that Nancy Barrett got her start in town affairs as an advocate for education at these Board of Education meetings. She founded the Team for Education organization that came here month after month, year after year, advocating for appropriate funding and for our students. So I am here tonight to set the record straight, to explain why this Board of Education should be grateful for Mrs. Barrett's efforts, and to explain why we need a memorandum regarding unexpended Board of Education funds. And I will do this as quickly as possible. First, some legal background.
Shouldn't that be done through the Board of Finance?
No, these comments were made here last month. And
In that 4-minute window you were talking about?
Yep, yes. And on
Okay.
November 10th, they were made at this meeting.
Well, I would just like to make one comment and
Yes, sir.
retort to that. In that, I watched it myself, I was obviously unable to be here. In that 3 or 4 minute
About 4 minutes.
time window, and from the beginning of that meeting to the end of the meeting, was there never, ever any comment made to directly against Ms. Barrett to suggest that retaliation of any sort needs to be made?
No.
We don't threaten anybody.
No.
We don't suggest that people threaten people. We don't do that. That's not our job here. And to suggest that is inappropriate.
Well,
So
I'm not
if you have anything
suggesting.
else to add to that, you can.
Okay.
But I just want
I
to get
will.
clear with that.
Yeah,
Anything
what-
we say here is not suggestive to go out there and get a mob
No.
started against people.
Absolutely. What I said was the comments were made by implication against Nancy Barrett, as she's been the most,
And by implication, the way you read it made
Yeah.
it sound like that we suggested that
Oh,
she be
no, no.
harassed.
Oh, no, no.
And I just want to make that very clear that
I'm
that's not true.
I don't mean that at all. What I said was that there was a comment made, and I'll get to it, but as a result, not any intention by this board, but as a result, Mrs. Barrett is currently unfairly targeted on social media. I'm not saying who's responsible for that at all. I'm more interested in setting the record straight about the factual background and the memorandum of understanding itself. And so I just wanted to briefly give two statutory two statutory references for legal background. 10-222 of the Connecticut General Statutes gives this board great discretion to spend money that is appropriated. It says that money appropriated by any municipality shall be expended by and in the discretion of the Board of Education. That's 10-222. But when the Board of Education has unexpended leftover money not necessary for it to fulfill its obligations in the operating budget, that was approved at the referendum. When there's unexpended money, section 10-248A comes into play. And that statute says that the Board of Finance may deposit into a non-lapsing account any unexpended funds. And of course, there are restrictions. The deposit cannot exceed 2% of the total appropriation for that year. The funds that are deposited into this account must be used for educational purposes, which I fully support, and the expenditures from the non-lapsing account should be authorized by the local Board of Education, something that both myself and Mrs. Barrett fully support. So I would just like to give some now factual background. At the August 19th, 2020 Board of Finance meeting, the Board of Finance voted unanimously pursuant to 10-248A to establish a non-lapsing account, and they called it the Board of Ed Carryover Fund. The Board of Finance transferred $573,000 of unexpended or surplus funds into this non-lapsing account from fiscal year 2019-2020. At that meeting, the finance director, the then finance director, and the late Ed Swinkowski stated with great clarity that the finance department and Board of Finance would oversee the spending of the money from that fund. For months after, the Board of Ed carryover account appeared on the town's special funds report, and then it suddenly disappeared with no explanation. I still don't know what that $573,000 of taxpayer money was spent on.
That's from 2019 to 2020?
The 2019/2020 fiscal year.
Well, that's long before I was on the board in any fashion, so I can't answer that. And
Okay.
not
Well,
only
I'm not
that,
asking,
Howard is not here today.
I'm just commenting on the factual background.
Howard is not here today to comment on any of the goings on between the Board of Education and the Board of Finance, which I know are ongoing,
Right.
to get the agreement together.
Okay.
So what I would just like to say is that, our public comment is only supposed to be 20 minutes, so it's supposed to be
Right.
5 per person. If you could kind of
I'm
wrap it
getting-
up, I
I'm
understand
getting
what you're
near the
saying,
end.
but we can't even really answer any of your questions today.
I don't have any
Howard's
questions.
not here. Well,
I have no questions.
I know, but
This
you're
is
making
comment.
statements that need to be commented on, and Howard's not here to do that.
Okay, well, I could come back next meeting.
You are welcome to.
Thank you. So if I can continue with my comments, no questions. Then came the closeout of the 2021 fiscal year. And we, the members of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, received Mr. Wardlow's year-end report, which stated that $1 million of unexpended funds from the BO Board of Ed budget were transferred into 3 reserve accounts. $350,000 to special ed, $300,000 to medical, and $350,000 to capital. There was no vote by this Board of Education for the transfer of those funds. And statute 10-248A requires this board to discuss and vote on that. There was no vote and no action by the Board of Finance. This is when Nancy Barrett, on the Board of Finance, really started to voice her concerns. Not just the past 2 months, like Howard said at the meeting last month. He said that it had only been discussed for 2 months. Mrs. Barrett has been fighting for a fair process and for the Board of Ed to vote on these transfers for 2 years. And then we fast forward to the closeout of 21-22 fiscal year this past summer, and Mr. Wardlow reported again that unexpended funds were transferred $420,000 to medical and $200,000 to capital. This time, the Board of Ed did vote on these transfers, so there was at least some compliance with 10-248A, but still no action by the Board of Finance. And this is why I said in the beginning that this Board of Ed owes Mrs. Barrett some gratitude, because in my opinion, having attended all Board of Finance meetings, it was her efforts and her concerns about a lack of a process for dealing with unexpended funds, that it was her concerns that led to this board taking that vote as they should have. This is the people's money. It should be debated by this board, the elected members, and this is what Mrs. Barrett was fighting for. In recent months, Mrs. Barrett continued to raise the issue of a proper process, and Mr. Frieda agreed that moving forward, we would follow a proper procedure. A legal opinion was requested, and Town Attorney D'Onofrio recommended a memorandum of understanding between the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance. So at the November 10th meeting, Mr. Wardlow explained the memorandum in general terms to this board, and he stated, let me just get the quotes.
So I'm gonna have to ask you to
Yep.
start wrapping it up,
I am,
because
sir.
I have other speakers.
He stated that right now, we are currently, quote, currently we've been doing it informally. This memorandum of understanding is to codify a formal process. To me, informally means a lack of transparency. I believe that we have to, the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance must discuss openly at their open meetings and vote on these appropriations. Mrs. Gabriel stated, and I quote, "There has been some discussion by one particular Board of Finance member about why we have special ed funds and why we have capital reserves." That is false. That was directed at Mrs. Barrett. She has never questioned why we have those funds. In fact, she said repeatedly in the past 2 years, she was not questioning the need for adequate funding of those accounts. The question is, why was it that $1 million divided up the way it was? Maybe instead of 300,000, 500,000 should have gone to special ed funds. It was never discussed and never voted on.
Okay,
And so
Sally,
I
I
really-
appreciate
Okay.
everything. I would love to have you come back in the February meeting. Howard will be here,
Right.
and we'll be able to address those meetings, because he's the one that is really with the Board of Finance, working out the details of all that stuff. And I don't want to speak out of turn
Okay.
on something that he may have put together, and I am not nearly qualified to discuss finances like he is.
Right.
So,
It's just my hope that the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance will work together in a cooperative manner, which is the framework of 10-248A, that they will work together in the best interest for our students. Thank you for your time and
Thank you.
attention.
I
And go
appreciate it.
North Haven on Saturday. Thank you.
thank you. Time for one more.
Okay, I'll try to be
Sure,
quick.
now
I'll
you
just read through it.
take your 5.
I'm really hoping that this is the last time that we have to all come up here and talk about this. I want to begin by stating that I and some others here in the room tonight will never apologize or be made to feel as though we are bullies or non-inclusive of all people. I will never apologize for my beliefs, my values, and my absolute lioness protection of my children. So there was a lot of mention of support for LGBTQ students at the November meeting, and insinuations made that those who spoke at the September meeting do not support the LGBTQ community and students. I'm not sure I heard anything other than parents who were concerned that their children could be asked what their preferred pronouns were without notifying the parents if it was different than what their parents knew. I would argue that these topics should be discussions at home, and that's my opinion. I have a very open relationship with my own children, and we discuss sexual preference openly, that if they have any concerns or questions regarding their own sexuality, they know they can come to me or their father. Now, there's an argument that some households are not so accepting, and schools should be the safe place, and they should be. The relationships those kids have with teachers, friends, other close adults in their lives hopefully allow for them to open up to them and discuss their struggles. Our world is not like it was years ago, and our children are so much more accepting of one another, and it's a wonderful thing to see. So please, to those who say that we do not support LGBTQ kids or the community, just because we don't want the general student population to have to take a survey excluding their parents from the conversation is nonsense. It's not about the survey, it's about excluding the parent. I would also argue that it shouldn't be yet another responsibility of the teachers to take on the parent role. They have way too much on their plates already. 74% of our Connecticut teachers want to leave the field of education. 74%. This was a study that just came out. With the expectations and demands for inclusivity on the teachers, is it any surprise? Speaking of inclusivity, there are those who spew out the words diversity, inclusion, anti-bullying. But those same individuals appear to only be concerned with their own ideology and interpretation of diversity and inclusion, shutting down, or trying to at least, the voices of people with differing beliefs. Doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So for the board, I would request the following, all of which are ultimately about parent and student rights. Number 1, surveys. If any non-educational surveys or questionnaires are to be conducted, the student and the parent should be notified in advance of it being given, that they can opt out, and notify them how to opt out. Books. Students and parents be given the list of assigned books for the year, or as they're assigned. If known to be controversial, parents should be told so. Parent and student can choose a different reading assignment if they choose. And I know this is already an option, but I think it just needs to be put out there to general population of students and parents. Lastly, notify all parents and students immediately, because I've spoken to many and they are not aware of this, that the restrooms and locker rooms are or can be used by an identifying transgender student. The student can choose to use a private changing room or bathroom facility if they are uncomfortable. And please don't anyone dare to say this is homophobic or anti-LGBTQ. I did not say that transgender student shouldn't use the bathroom or locker rooms. I'm saying that any student that is uncomfortable with that situation can use a private facility. They should be told that they can do this. Unfortunately, there have been many documented cases in our country of students being sexually assaulted, one as young as 5 years old in Florida, by a transgender youth in a bathroom. This is not a scare tactic, this is reality, and a parent has a right to know. All children deserve protection, safety, equality, inclusivity. By all, I mean transgender, gay, straight, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, handicapped, and so on. So in conclusion, I have to state it again. I do not apologize for my beliefs, my family beliefs, and values, and will not be made out to be someone who doesn't support all of our students in town and in the world. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. That would be the end of this portion of public comment. I would just like to say one thing out loud. That's the thing about public comment. Public comment is for everyone to speak their piece and to try to get the information that they deem important to them. That does not mean that we all agree. Does not mean we have the same way of saying things. It's not. We all have different temperaments. We all have different ways of reacting to comments made by other people. The only thing I ever ask, and the board ever asks, is just like tonight, that when we come here with diverse thought, that we can be civil about it, and we can make our exchange. We can get some answers together for you that we don't have prepared right now, and get them to you, or try to answer questions that we do have answers for now. So with that, I appreciate everybody's participation in public comment, and we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Retirement of Martha Butterworth, Supervisor of Technology Support Services. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? None? Okay, all set. Is there anybody here from the parent representative report? Okay. You are up.
Jennifer Gearing, I am co-president of PTA Council. For those of you who may not know what PTA Council is, we sort of oversee all of the PTAs in town. So we meet 6 times a year with PTA presidents or representatives from each school. So we actually just had a meeting this past Tuesday. It was a very productive meeting. We had a good amount of people in attendance. And we have invited Patrick Lawrence to be on our board. So he has been attending most of our meetings that we have held since he was hired as a DEI instructor. And so one of the big conversations that we had with him was incorporating the word belonging into that title. So now it's diversity, equity, inclusion, and more so belonging. So not to exclude anyone, but sort of to encompass also the special ed community. We did have a lot of discussion about how we need to sort of unify those two communities. And so it was a very productive, engaging conversation that we had. So I encourage anyone to go back to your school's PTA meetings and ask about further discussion on that, and maybe invite Patrick to come to those meetings as well. I'm sure he would be happy to do some sort of smaller presentation on a smaller scale. One of the things we did agree upon was that moving forward, we're going to try to do a monthly or a quarterly newsletter that will hopefully go out through Swift Reach, or we're not sure the venue yet. Of course, we're in talks with Patrick about that, both Patricks about that. So hopefully we'll have a better update for you on that next meeting. One of the other discussions we had around DEI and belonging was possibly getting parents and grandparents and neighbors back into the schools for more of sharing about cultural backgrounds and sharing of holidays and celebrations and stuff like that. So I know that we are coming off of COVID, where we haven't allowed parents and volunteers into the schools, but that is something that the parents are interested in doing more so of. So we also talked about bringing back our PTA road race in the spring. That has been going on for several years now. It was an event that we started from Ridge Road and Clintonville, and then we sort of brought it to the whole town. And so that is our kind of one and only town-wide PTA event. We did talk a lot about trying to do others. So one of the ideas was maybe an adult night out for everyone and not just for each of the individual schools. So more on that. Let's see. We have a special ed committee that's part of PTA Council. So it sort of started when my co-president and I became co-presidents of council, but it was during COVID, and so nothing really sort of happened with that. A little bit here and there, as some of you know, they've had some meet and greets. They actually applied for a grant through North Haven Ed Foundation, and they received a grant for $4,000, and they're doing informational folders and some other events, but we are really trying to support them and enhance them to do more. So hopefully this year we will get that up and running some more. Let's see. And lastly, just from all of the PTAs, all of their school fundraisers are back up and running, and they're doing lots of fun events, as hopefully you guys know and have attended. But it's a good year so far. Hopefully back to work.
Excellent, thank you. Does anybody on the board have any questions? No? I just have one comment.
Yes.
You mentioned that you would like to have your grandparents, parents, other people come in and speak. What I would suggest is, why don't you put that down in email form with exactly how you're looking to
Do that.
what you're trying to accomplish with that, and the goals you want to set for that,
Sure.
and just forward it to Mr. Stirk.
Yep.
So we can take a look at that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we go on to the report of Board of Education chairperson or designee. And again, starting in February, Patrick and Melinda will be organizing presentations that highlight the instructional work from across the district. So we'll be starting that in February. The reason we're starting that in February, not January, is because unfortunately it's budget season. So we get to have budget workshop next month. So next month's meeting will be about budget workshop, and unfortunately there will be no public comment next month because it's a workshop strictly for the budget. So we're going to go to the report of standing committees, and we'll start with ACES. Martin, do you have anything?
Yeah, they had their meeting today. It was partly to show off the programs that students in the various schools had. They brought a number of the students in who produced pictures that were made into T-shirts and postcards that could be sent out to people, which was interesting. They also had a presentation on Head Start, and this was presented by the group from Middlesex County. And it went through basically the methods and operations of Head Start. And just the highlights were that they evaluate everybody on an individual basis through the course of their work. They have 1,700 performance standards, which they are supposed to adhere to with all the family evaluations. And they also, like us, are having problems hiring. So they partnered with a group called Express Employment Professions located here in North Haven. And they are interviewing the non-certified staff that they're trying to get, nurses, classroom aides, and so on. And they are setting up a whole new program with that. So that's about where we stand at that point.
Excellent. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Mark? We'll move on to curriculum instruction plan.
Thank you. CNI Committee met this evening before our meeting. We had a guest present. His name was Devin Mannion. He's our 9 to 12 English Language Arts Coordinator. We discussed updating our text for the current AP Language and Composition. The book we're currently using is the Norton Reader 14th edition. We want to up, the committee spoke about it, and we've, the Norton Reader 15th edition, which was published in 2020. The main reason that he requested the update was there's been a change in the College Board. The prior text that we're currently using is before that change, so this textbook will align with the new standards, and he's also anticipating that there will be a larger influx of students coming into that class because of the significant amount of students in AP Language and Humanities right now, and this book, or the new book, is easier to get. We discussed a couple of music department proposals, which include 2 new high school courses, 1 level change for the current high school course, which the goal of that level change is for music theory course change from level 2 to 3. And like I said, the goal of that is to increase the rigor of that course for students that want to go into advanced placement in music theory. And the 2 course proposals were Guitar 2, which is a continuation of what we have now, which is a guitar lab. And there's interest in piano, so it's a piano lab is the new course that was being asked. So the committee agreed with all those proposals and the new textbook.
Yeah, I don't see that being an issue. Excellent. Is that it?
Yep.
Anybody from the board have any questions? No. North Haven Education Foundation, I don't believe they met last month, so we'll move on to policy. The second read of the following policies: physical activity, undirected play, and student discipline policy. The meal charging policy. Policy to improve completion rates of the fee application for federal student aid, FAFSA. Curricular exemptions policy. Student attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism policy. Ad hoc district calendar committee, that meeting was canceled. That's just an information item. So all those second reads of those policies. Next is staff communications. It's time for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairperson Bathrick. So as Chairperson Bathrick mentioned earlier, we're getting into budget season. So Howard and I have been meeting with all department heads, principals at the different buildings just to start the discussions. We're about halfway through at this point. But the board, as Chairperson Bathrick said, will hold a workshop on Thursday, January 12th in place of the regular meeting. There'll be a second meeting scheduled and a potential third workshop just in case we need the extra time to discuss during the week of January 16th. Now Monday is Martin Luther King Day, so I reached out to the board. I've heard from many of you that I think it will end up being Tuesday the 17th will be the second day, but I'll send confirmation out to the board as soon as I hear from everyone. And the third workshop, I think we'll have to gauge that because some people are free the 17th and some are the 18th, so we'll have to see how we go on that. I mean the 18th and 19th, I'm sorry. And I think everyone's good with a 6 p.m. start as opposed to a 6:30, so that's great. So January 12th, the opening workshop will include an opening presentation from Howard and myself, and a discussion and presentation around special education, IT, and facilities. And the second workshop will include a discussion around each school as well as athletics. Some really great news. Well, let's start. Some not so great news that we recently found out that there is an athletic trainer shortage. Along with everything else, there's a shortage of athletic trainers. So we've worked with Quinnipiac Physical Therapy for the last 20 years or so, and we have a great relationship with them and Dave Micus, and they provided us really a great service for the last 2 decades. However, in meeting with them a few months ago, they shared with us that they will no longer be able to provide an athletic trainer to us, consistently at least. So upon hearing that, Steve, Mr. Blumenthal, myself, Howard, decided to take a jump and create our own position to hire our own athletic trainer here in district. And I'm happy to report that we hired someone on Tuesday. His name is William D. Giuseppe, if I said that correctly. He worked in the Guilford Public Schools as well as at Sacred Heart University and University of Rhode Island. So we're really excited for him to start in a few weeks. And when Steve, Howard, and myself were creating this position, we really leaned on Eleni. This is her area of expertise. She just gave us a lot of pointers to make sure that we were hiring and looking for the best candidates. So I know she's not here tonight, but I do want to thank her for all her support with that. I'm not sure if everyone heard, but just today the Next Generation Accountability reports were released. They were actually on WTNH right before I got here. We just got them like a day before. Yeah, I think we got them Monday. So Melinda and I are digging into them, and hopefully, if the board's okay, with a February or potentially March presentation around the results from the accountability reports. And buses. I did want to talk a little bit about busing. It continues to be a concern. I think we're doing a little bit better as far as drop-off times in the PM. We're getting our all clears around 4:15, 4:20 as opposed to 4:45 and 4:50. But that doesn't mean we're not still short approximately 5 drivers as of last week and a handful of van drivers as well. So Howard and myself meet often with the general manager of M&J, and they're really actively recruiting drivers, and they're also trying to be strategic in retaining their own drivers, whether it's offering raises or bonuses in some fashion, but it's not necessarily creating more drivers at this point. There's still a struggle to sign them on, and then unfortunately a couple weeks ago we got a brand new driver on the road, licensed, ready to go, and that same day a driver resigned. So we were ready to split a bus, and then we just ended up as a wash. So it's an uphill battle at this point. So if anyone at home or in the audience would like to drive one of our buses, please, it's a, yeah. And as I'm recruiting all of you, the district employs bus monitors, and we are short probably 10 at this point, maybe even more. So again, please reach out. We'd love to have you be a monitor on one of our buses or our vans. And as Alex said earlier, just best of luck to the North Haven High School football team this weekend up at Rinchler Field. So thank you.
Nighthawks.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any questions?
I do have a couple questions. Patrick, do you have an ETA on the budget binders for us this year?
I'm hoping before we leave for break, because we would like you to have that amount of time. I say this with Howard not being here, so I'm going to hold him to it.
Yeah, okay.
But that will give enough time, because when we get back on the 3rd, if we're meeting on the 12th, I mean, is Is that too short of time?
Not for me. That's
Okay.
my favorite Christmas present ever. So.
So I might be selling it a little short here, but it'll be, so you have at least 10 days to review it.
Awesome. And then is there any chance that I can get a copy in Excel as well? Howard has done that for me in the past. I'm happy to email him if that's okay too, but it's helpful for slicing and dicing.
We can do both.
Awesome. And then on the athletic trainer position, do we have a cost differential between the in-house hire and the consultancy we were doing with QVHD previously?
So I can say in general terms, it's close to being a wash, but I will have Howard. He dissected that a little bit before we got into it and said it was comparable, but I will get more exact for you.
Okay. And then on the buses, so we're seeing like the driver for bus 21, I think, just resigned. Very sorry, we're going to miss them. But should parents expect any kind of timeline on new drivers? Is there any additional information we can give them on new drivers?
So when they recruit and hire, it's weeks before they get on the road. And then that's also assuming that they pass their licensing, and then their training after that. And so last I heard, there were 1 or 2 in the hopper, but they were weeks out. And sometimes that changes when we meet with Mr. Hipster, and I'm never sure if the 2 he's telling me about 1 week are the same 2 he has the next week. So I can't pin that down, I'm sorry.
Have we gotten an update from M&J on any kind of hiring practices? Are they doing anything to incentivize additional folks to try to improve recruitment?
So there are sign-on bonuses, they're holding open houses, they're providing retention, bonuses or retention pay for drivers that are staying with them. They're trying desperately to stay competitive with the New Havens, East Havens, our surrounding communities. And they've been very open and honest with us that they're working hard. It's just they can't get the people to come in.
The people that they have on right now are phenomenal. Miss D, big shout out to Miss D. She's amazing, best bus driver ever. But like it is very frustrating from a parent perspective to see these buses combined all the time.
And they are working with us and collaborating, brainstorming random ideas. And this is not only the AM and PM runs. This is athletics too. And because this is the winter season, just because the basketball, girls and boys basketball ends up going back to back to back. And so that's a couple of different buses. And so Steve and I tried to get a jump on this just to give them the heads up that the winter season is difficult, more so sometimes than the fall. So we're hopeful right now that athletic runs as well as our combination of buses will continue to improve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on the bus issue, as you know, this is one of the issues that bothers me, and I asked you, for a copy of the contract and stuff like that. I continue to be of the opinion that they're not providing the service to the district that they contracted with us for. I think there should they either need to provide the services that they contracted with us for, potentially give some sort of rebate or
We had
something,
discussions around a rebate.
because we're not getting what we need. It's hurting our athletic programs. It's hurting the students. As far as the times they're getting picked up, they're getting dropped off. I mean, there was a couple weeks where my kids were outside like 30 to 40 minutes earlier because buses were being combined. And when it's already 6 o'clock, you're lining up at 6:15 in the morning. That's early. It's more, especially, my son's taking all honors level classes in high school. He's got a ton of homework. He's up late. And then, it's 15, 20, 30 minutes early. It makes a difference.
Sure.
I don't know if it's appropriate to see if they can kind of come talk to the board and tell us what they're doing to kind of keep drivers. There's rumor mills around everything, and I don't want to speculate or say anything about things that I've heard, but if it's possible, I think it would be helpful for not only the board, but I think for the public to kind of hear from them and what they're doing.
And Mr. Hipster has spoken to the board in the past. He's very open to doing so I will definitely invite him again.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? That's it then. Okay.
We making a motion to get approval of a donation from BJE Design LLC for $500 to reconfigure the lights for the theater at the North Haven High School. So they came in and donated their time to change these lights, and I just need to make a motion to approve a donation from BJE Design LLC for $500 to reconfigure lights for the theater at the North Haven High School.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, that's correct. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the Assistant Superintendent's report.
Okay. This evening I have some slides to kind of highlight some of the initiatives that I'll speak about. And district-wide this week we're celebrating Hour of Code because it's Computer Science Education Week. So we're trying to just get some excitement across all the levels on this. And it's a joint effort between our Career and Tech Ed department, science, math, and our computer science classes. So Joyce, if you could click it, there's just some pictures that show each grade level. Elementary is doing it in their new STEM classes, so they're doing work, the K2 kids, really doing a lot of hands-on stuff with some grids and then starting on their Chromebooks. And then in grades 3 through 5, they're actually participating in the coding with the hourofcode.org website. If you could click it again for me, Joyce. Next at middle school, they were celebrating this in their 7th and 8th grade, their 6th grade computer class and their 7th and 8th grade math classes. And across all of the schools, there's just a really nice excitement this week around that. And if you can click to the high school, they participated in either their math classes or students who are actually taking computer science classes. So we're really trying to find opportunities to work across content areas and really marry things like STEM, because it's not just in math that you should be talking about that, or in science. So you can click again if you don't mind. And then, as Alex had mentioned, again, kind of across disciplines, we've been doing some work around setting up a school store, and our fashion design kids and our merchandising kids have taken the Nighthawk and are starting a little endeavor, a store. And not only have we taken it just from the high school, we've brought it to central office too. Jen Kay has been amazing in setting up store-like platforms to be able to do this ordering. Howard has been guiding us around thinking about how to give our students at the high school real business-like experiences. So the students who are in fashion and merchandising are creating the merchandise, but our business students are having some opportunities to work on some of the billing and going to look at some of the record-keeping, money in, money out as we're buying supplies. They've actually have a loan to be able to get this off the ground in terms of some of the materials, and the vibe around this is just super exciting. Orders have been being placed, and it's really wonderful. And then, I'm sorry.
Is there a website for that?
Yes, I can get you the link. It's not up there, but yes. I think it was going to go in some of the school newsletters too. So, and coupled with this, they're going to start having students like in the art department as they create different things. Like we're going to rotate different items for sale, I guess you would say, in this enterprise. And then one last thing I wanted to mention, and a shout out to the PTAs. Each of the elementary PTAs have been working closely with their new elementary STEM teacher and Paris Godbout, our science coordinator. And they are graciously hosting family STEM nights after the new year. They'll be obviously in different days in different buildings, and you'll get notification about that. But it's really wonderful, and our students are super excited, and I think our families are super excited to see what's going on in these STEM classes. And that is all I have.
a couple questions.
Yes.
Well, actually, there are more comments. Melinda, the STEM programming at the elementary school levels is being really well received.
Yes.
I've heard so much positive feedback from a lot of families on this one, so I just want to say thank you for that one. And then, I guess it's a question. Like, should we kick Killingly's rear ends this weekend? Can we, like, make special Nighthawk swag?
Yes, you know, they are building this from the ground up, so I can't commit them to anything else just yet until they get these orders set and delivered. And that little brochure on the wall there has information about it, so whoever just asked if there may be information to be able to link, there's a barcode up there, QR code, and you could get the information for orders on that.
Nope.
Anybody else? Okay. Director of Student Services report.
Last Wednesday evening event for junior families was held at the high school. There was a great turnout from families. Over 35 families attended the event. The interim director of admissions from Albertus Magnus provided an overview of the college planning process. The director of finance also went over the FASHA process and just financial aid in general. And I just want to make a note that Albertus Magnus representatives do not discuss their college. They just come to provide an overview to help families navigate the college planning process. The school counselors were provided with positive feedback from families regarding the night, and I want to say thank you to the counseling coordinator and the school counselors that came last Wednesday night to support our families. And if you were not able to come, there's materials up on the district's website that you can download. That's all I have this evening.
Anybody have any questions?
That was going to be my question about where can we get this information?
It's on the website, and you can also probably reach out to the school counselor.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we have the Director of Finance Operation and Human Resources Operations report. Obviously, Howard's not here, so Mr. Stirk is graciously.
Yes, take it easy on me. So, the monthly report for November showed spending to continue to be steady on all accounts. There are a few new items that Howard intended to share tonight. One is Object 112R, it's the reimbursement wages. It's a new object that we are breaking out as these are transactions. We're buried in a different full-time non-certified account. So these transactions are related to employees of the preschool that operates out of the high school. And these employees are not actually employees of the district. So it's this gray area. And so they really shouldn't be part of the operating budget. So that's why Howard has spent the time to tease them out. And these expenses have been and will continue to be reimbursed periodically by the preschool from its operating budget. And by adding this line, it highlights the transaction and ensures the reimbursement of the funds is being made. I'm going to stop at each point in case there are questions that I could take note of or try to answer or help out with. So if there's anything around that. So object 115A, differential. This is the object where charges for an employee who steps up and fills in at a higher level than their current pay grade are changed due to the inordinate amount of sick time or employees out on FMLA leave. We've exceeded that budget line, $10,000 already. So this will continue to be over budget throughout the year. And then objects 7380, it's the athletic equipment. The need for temporary bleachers for both the regular season and playoffs. The playoffs was an unbudgeted area, so that it caused the overage. So I guess that's a good overage that we made it to the postseason. Monthly transfers, November transfer report was provided in the packet. Are any questions that I can try to answer or share with Howard? Operational items, cafeteria fund. In Howard's report, there are pictures of the equipment that the excess cafeteria funds have purchased. We're still looking for additional equipment for Clintonville, Ridge Road, and Green Acres. And just a thank you to the board and thank you to Howard because we were able to extend free lunches for all students through December 31st. So that's a great benefit to our families. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And the notice to families went out on November 30th, notifying them that it will end at the end of this year. And in closing, the reserve accounts, medical, we're at 123% of the year's end midpoint, which is required by the actuaries. And our capital projects, we're about 345,000 balance with just the closed projects, but with all the projects included, we are left with 53,000, right around $54,000. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Can you thank Howard for breaking it out that way for me too? Because I do appreciate.
I think he's watching.
Yeah. Thanks, Howard. I do appreciate being able to see that.
Okay, go ahead.
Before we move on, can we talk about the MOU that was included, the draft language in that?
We can. I have some notes from Howard on that.
Oh, is that separate? Or we can talk about that?
I would think that Howard, because he's there all the time, would really benefit you if he was here and spoke to him directly. I mean, you can ask whatever you like. I'm not saying don't ask. I'm saying that the information you get may be limited as compared to Howard's here.
Is that something that we're going to vote on, though? Because some of the language in the MOU does make me a little bit uncomfortable. So, and I can tell you the specific language and give you an example of why it makes me uncomfortable, if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, in Section 1, it states the BOF may deny any request from the BOE or may approve such request with modifications, amendments, reductions, or such reasonable conditions as the BOF deems appropriate. So, after watching the last Board of Finance meeting, I do think that this imposes, I don't think that this is in line with the state statutes because of the words modifications, amendments, and reductions. For example, this would allow the Board of Education to request $100,000 be moved into a rollover fund, and the Board of Finance could say no. You may only roll over $50,000 and it cannot be used for X, Y, or Z based on the language in this MOU. I understand pretty thoroughly how this process works, and I just want to make sure that the Board of Finance does tell us whether or not we can move money into a reserve account at the end of the year for unencumbered funds, right? But they cannot tell us what we may spend it on. So
that is the intention of the MOU, but maybe the wording's off on that.
I do not like this wording. And that's that.
Okay. Anybody else? May I have a motion to approve the monthly financial report, including the recommended transfers?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so moved. Okay, we move on to our second portion of public comment, and again, just a reminder, the public comment in this section is only for things that are related to tonight's agenda. So if anybody has a question about tonight's agenda, please feel free to step up and say your piece.
Hi, Jennifer Gearing,
Yeah.
73 Mallory. Just a question about the Nighthawks logo. I think you and I talked about it, Patrick, or maybe it was Steve and I, doing a lot of the Spirit Wear orders with Sports Plus for sports and for PTA. I know that drawn out logo is very difficult to replicate, and so I had suggested, because of Bob at Sports Plus, that we come up with a more simplified logo instead of the what is presented there, which is more appropriate for banners and such. So I just wanted to ask what kind of the follow-up was on that.
So Steve and I are talking about that.
Yeah.
He brought it to my attention too, and something to put on a baseball cap or a sleeve of a jersey or something like that.
Right.
We're looking into, and I think we're using Bob's advice at Sports Plus on how to go about doing that.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Didn't we have simplified drawings though from the artist?
They're low detail, but they still encompass that whole picture.
When you're making that patch,
Okay.
it looks like
It's just too much.
it's like trying to put too much tattoo in a little circle. It's like a black, circle in the end.
Okay.
Anybody else? Not that I have one, but anybody else public comment about today's agenda? No. Okay. Well, I thank everyone for coming, and may I have a motion to adjourn the December 8, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks everyone for showing up, I appreciate it, thank you.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.